the ultimate act of betrayal, leaving your terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome imaginable, with no food, no water, no protection.
I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
I'm innocent. You all, you're garbage.
This is one of the most disgusting trials that I ever had to sit through. We're done.
I sentence you to...
You, my mom, just died. This is Michelle Blair, a mother of four who's accused of murder, and in Michigan in 2014. Blair allegedly and two of her at her apartment in downtown Detroit. Michelle Blair told police she's son and a daughter, and kept them in a freezer inside this apartment for 2 years. A living son and daughter have told investigators they too were. Shockingly, the 35-year-old continued to live with the other children along with her two remaining kids until 2 years later, when an eviction crew arrived to throw her out and discovered the 13-year-old Stoney Blair and 9-year-old Stephen Barry stored in a freezer in the living room. Blair was arrested and charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder and first degree before going to trial. Blair appeared at a custody hearing of her 2 surviving children. Never, you understand what I'm saying? I don't understand the whole crew here now, but y'all was never there for them. How many birthdays did you miss? You like a damn fool, y'all putting on that show. Step out here for my kids. You pathetic. He's a drunk. During the hearings, Blair repeatedly exploded at the 2 fathers of her kids. The allegations against my client, Mr. Barry, are failure to protect and abandonment and never being there for his kids. She was always on. Mother, listen to me. I had to beg you to come see me. Underscore this for real. Mother, listen to me. No matter how much you lie or how your lawyers lie, you know truth and it will be proved. Matthew G. clearly said a judge tried to defuse the situation, but an enraged Blair was having none of it. Are you done? Mother, listen to me. This is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. We can and we will do it without you. I never tried to say I didn't. I did it, but that does not negate the fact that they were never there for their children. I had to struggle with them all the time. They were never there. You know, we had to beg you. Me, Stephen, all of us. It's a cry for you. But it was when she was being removed from the courtroom that Blair dropped a bombshell. You everybody want to know? Yes, I did. Eventually, Blair pleaded guilty to all charges and asked to be sent to prison for life. To my understanding, to get a trial is to get to the truth, right? I'm already saying that I did it. I'm freely giving myself and accepting life in prison. I'm happily saying life in prison. If you had, I will take that. I don't care. She believed her teenage daughter and 9-year-old son were aying her youngest child, Matthew. Miss Blair, what did you do to Stoney Blair that makes you guilty of premeditated murder? My son, I intentionally hurt. How did you do that? The killer mom then went into gruesome details of how she tortured and ultimately killed Stoney and Stephen. I aided her every time he told me what she did to him. By I mean I punch her. I put a bag over her head till she lost consciousness. I threw hot water on her, scalding hot water from the faucet. Did you hit her in the head with a wooden stick? Yes, I hit her on her head multiple times over and over. I hit on her back. It's like with her tailbone. I kicked her. All right. Tell me what happened to Stephen. Basically the same thing. I put a bag over his head. He lost consciousness. I did that a couple times. Grabbed a belt, and I put a belt around his neck, and I lifted him up like, do you like how this feels being with a belt? So I dropped him. I held him up until he lost consciousness as well. Did you also punch him? Yes, I did multiple times. Yes, I did. You talked about underscore him. Did you also burn him? Yes, I did. Okay, how did you do that? Hot water. Scalding hot water in our bathroom. The hot water gets extremely hot. I threw hot water in his area. Multiple times. Before declaring her fate, Judge Dana Hathaway had some words for the defendant. As a mother, one of your primary responsibilities was to protect your kids. And in that respect, You failed in the worst possible way. You're therefore sentenced to the Michigan Department of Corrections for the rest of your life, without the possibility of parole. Meaning, of course, that you will never get out. Step back. Ultimately, Blair was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole and the murder of her 2 kids, while Michelle Blair showed no remorse in court. How does it compare to throwing your newborn into a dumpster? Like in the case of Alexis Zavala, who's on trial for child abuse in Hobbs, New Mexico. On a cold January day in 2022, CCTV cameras captured a woman who was later identified as 18-year-old Alexis Zavala driving to a dumpster and dropping off what appeared to be a black garbage bag. Hours later, 3 dumpster divers went through the same dumpster, scavenging for goods. At first, they seemed confused upon finding the black garbage bag. Hearing faint cries from inside, the divers first suspected it to be a trapped cat, but when one of them opened the bag, it led to a shocking discovery. April Meadow, who was one of the divers, found a newborn child wrapped in a cold, wet towel, whimpering and freezing to death. Without a second thought, she cradled the baby and kissed its forehead, while the others called 911. 911, where is your emergency? We just found the baby in the trash. Is it breathing? Yes, ma'am. He's still got his umbilical cords. He's whimpering. He was not crying. Actually, police soon arrived at the scene and secured the bag and CCTV footage as evidence. The baby was rushed to a hospital where miraculously it survived. Zavala was identified from the footage and brought in for questioning, where she admitted to her crime in great detail. Look what she does. I know, just tosses it. Look at that piece of... I put it in the bag. I took it to the car. When I was in the car, I had 2 trash bags. I took one with me, which is the one that I had. And then I put again, and then I drove around and I didn't know what to do and I just put it in there. Where'd you throw the garbage bag? In the trash. In the trash. Okay. Did you lock it up and seal it up? With that the hair tie, right? Did you place it there? Just throw it there. What did you do? What do you mean? I mean the trash like in the trash. I just like it when I toss it in. The teenager said she put the amongst other trash, drove around for a while, and threw the bag in a dump. Dumpster divers that they found a baby. According to Officer Maxwell, she noticed the umbilical cord had been cut, but it was still long and was wrapped in a cold, wet towel. Zavala tried to justify herself by saying she acted out in panic. Obviously, you're 18 years of age. You know right from wrong, right? Right. Okay, so you wrap around a new inside a trash bag. Panic. I might just turned 18, right? It's not like I've been 18 forever. Exactly. But, if somebody were to wrap you inside a trash can and put a tie on it and you're not able to move well, the tie was broke. Like I would be able to stick my hand in there. What do you think would have happened? What do you mean? So, what do you think would have happened? You never notified law enforcement. You never called for EMS. I didn't, but I didn't. I'm still in what do you think is going to happen? I don't know. Allah also seemed to be under the impression that she didn't do anything wrong. It's not normal behavior from any reasonable person to do what she did. If I'm what you mean, it's not in a panic when I just turned 18, right? It still isn't though. We're talking about a big no. I know what you mean, but I might get what you mean. Then Zavala made a bizarre statement saying she was aware of her pregnancy, but didn't actually know that she was pregnant. Right. I found out I was pregnant yesterday because I heard it. The doctor showed me. I knew back in whenever, but I didn't know. Does that make sense? I was like, oh, it's whatever. Authorities didn't buy her story and charged Zavala with attempted first-degree murder and choose resulting in great bodily harm. At her trial, Zavala testified saying she doesn't recall giving birth to baby. I just remember sitting there. And then it was on the toilet or on the floor. I don't remember. You don't remember if it was in the toilet bowl or on the floor. So, what were you thinking in that moment? I was in shock. I'm like, how could this happen? She also claimed to be in shock and didn't remember disposing of in the trash. In fact, Zavala said the only thing she recollected from that day was leaving the police station. It's something that had happened to you before. Yes. How often has this happened to you? Not very often. I'm not very often where I completely black out, but the prosecution was having none of it. They made Avala confess to her crimes in front of the jury. The contents of this bag were used by you, as seen in the video, to throw your newborn into the dumpster. I'm showing the witness Exhibit 6. It was his baby, wasn't it? Yes, sir. He was your baby, wasn't he? Yes, sir. And you put him in a trash bag, didn't you? Of what was shown today? Yes. I'm showing the witness what's been entered into evidence is Exhibit 18. This trash bag. Do you need me to step closer, ma'am, so that you can see Exhibit 18? No, I can see. I was just waiting for question. My question is, it was this trash bag, wasn't it? That's the one that's in the back. Yes, I don't recall the back. Even though Avala maintained that she came to know about her pregnancy one day before the incident, Stephen Atorga, Avila's ex-boyfriend and father of the abandoned baby, revealed both Avila and he knew about the pregnancy 8 months prior to the incident. My name is Stephen. Mr. STO. Do you know a person by the name of Alexis Ovula? Yes, sir. Did you observe the pregnancy test? Or did someone tell you about the pregnancy test? No, I observed it. Observed it. Yes, sir. And the pregnancy test was, I presume, administered with Miss Ayla? Yes. And she was obviously present for this pregnancy test. Is that right? Yes, sir. She appeared to see the pregnancy test, or to not see the pregnancy test. She's seen it. Did you ever discuss this pregnancy test? Not that I recall. At her sentencing, Avia addressed the courtroom and showed remorse for her actions. I regret that I had to miss out on every first milestone the baby had, and that I deprived him of motherly love. I regret that his first hours of life were traumatic, and I regret that he will always have this in the back of his head. After hours of deliberation, the jury eventually came to an unsurprising verdict. Alexis Nicole Avila, guilty of attempt to commit first-degree murder, is charged in count 1 signed by the foreperson. We find the defendant Alexis Nicole Agua not guilty of attempt to commit first-degree murderous charge in count 1. Finally, and this is probably the cruelest of all mitigating factors, and that is you've given yourself a life sentence. You've given yourself a life sentence of knowing what you did with your child, and you've also given your son that same life sentence. Ultimately, Alexis Avala was sentenced to 16 years in prison. As for the baby, he is now named Saul and lives a healthy life with his father's family, while a young mother panicked and made a rash decision that changed her life forever. What?
Finally, and this is probably the cruelest of all mitigating factors, and that is you've given yourself a life sentence. You've given yourself a life sentence of knowing what you did with your child. And you've also given your son that same life sentence.
Ultimately, happens when a father runs his child to death, like in the case of Christopher Greger, who was on trial for and murder in New Jersey. On April 2nd, 2021, Greger arrived at a hospital with his son Corey in his arms, who was unresponsive and unconscious. Things changed significantly later that day when Dr. Feinold said Chris Greer brought Corey into the hospital. Doctors found several injury marks on the child's body. The 6-year-old child died shortly after. Greger fled the scene and went on the run before being stopped by the police and arrested. Facing charges of first-degree murder and endangerment, Greger pleaded not guilty and went to trial. His defense argued that Corey, who stayed with Greger after his divorce, died due to sepsis, which was caused when the child was visiting his mother, Brianna, and Jersey Shore Medical Center told her, "Brianna, leave the child here," and she did not. She took Corey home to sign papers against medical advice. A doctor later debunked that claim. My opinion was that there was nothing available in all the discovery and the medical records that were consistent with an infection causing Corey's death, or even playing a role in it. When you say nothing available, it didn't exist. I didn't see anything that suggested infection. And is that opinion to a medical degree of certainty? Absolutely. In fact, another doctor testified that Corey was murdered. Corey's manner of death is homicide. Corey died of blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, and laceration and contusion of the liver. A child welfare officer who visited Corey days before he noticed several marks on his body. I saw him some bruises to his legs, arms, and hips. I also saw a minoration to above one of his eyebrows. I forget what eyebrow exactly. In the gym, Gregor could be seen deliberately increasing the speed of the treadmill, while Corey ran on it until the child couldn't run any faster. Instead of stopping, Gregor pulled Corey up and forced him onto the treadmill. Failing to keep up, Corey fell several more times as his heartless father watched on. Eventually, Gregor was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and child endangerment. He currently awaits sentencing and faces 10 to 30 years in prison, while Christopher Gregor awaits his fate after his son's death. What happens when a comet collapses in court? Happens when a father runs his child to death? Like in the A and as such, the court finds that each be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of life. Like in the case of Shanita Latrice Cunningham and Erica May Butts, who were accused of a child in South Carolina. The two reportedly 3-year-old Serenity Richardson to death when Butts was babysitting the child. Butts, who was Serenity's godmother, later confessed to repeatedly wounding the child with not only that. When Serenity became unconscious, they tried to revive her by putting under her nose and putting her in an ice bath. Serenity suffered from more than 250 injuries to her body, including a lacerated liver, broken ribs, and a fractured skull. Such was the horrific nature of the abuse that prosecutors said the only uninjured part of Serenity's body were the soles of her feet. Both Cunningham and Butts were convicted of lips and murder. At their sentencing, Judge Deidre Richardson said nothing had ever affected her as strongly as the photos of the little girl's body, the severity of the blow to that child's leg, and to say that you did not recognize what had been done. To ignore what must have been excruciating sound that came from that child on a daily basis is more than disconcerting to this court. She then sentenced the two killers to life in prison without parole. And as such, the court finds it appropriate that each be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of life. This is when things got crazy. After the verdict, the two defendants collapsed as screams of their family members echoed through the courtroom. Please get up. Get out there. I can't leave my baby. My baby is out. Both women started hyperventilating and had to be restrained and wheeled out of court. Slow down. Slow down. All right. While the chaotic and bizarre courtroom collapse was truly shocking, what happens when a mother leaves her case of Christopher Gregor, who was on trial for a murder in New Jersey? On April 2nd, 2021, Gregor arrived at a hospital with his son Corey in his arms, who was unresponsive and unconscious. Things changed significantly later that day when Dr. Feinold said Chris Greer brought Corey into the hospital. Doctors found several injury marks on the child's body. The 6-year-old child died shortly after. Gregor fled the scene and went on the run before being stopped by the police and arrested, facing charges of first-degree murder and endangerment. Gregor pleaded not guilty and went to trial. His defense argued that Corey, who stayed with Gregor after his divorce, died due to sepsis, which was caused when the child was visiting his mother, Brianna, and Jersey Shore Medical Center told her, "Brianna, leave the child here." And she did not. She took Corey home to sign papers against medical advice. A doctor later debunked that claim. My opinion was that there was nothing available in all the discovery and the medical records that were consistent with an infection causing Corey's death or even playing a role in it. When you say nothing available, it didn't exist. I didn't see anything that suggested infection. And is that opinion to a medical degree of certainty? Absolutely. In fact, another doctor testified that Corey was murdered. Corey's manner of death is homicide. Corey died of blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, and laceration and contusion of the liver. A child welfare officer who visited Corey days before he noticed several marks on his body. I saw him some bruises to his legs, arms, and hips. I also saw a minoration to above one of his eyebrows. I forget what eyebrow exactly. In the gym, Gregor could be seen deliberately increasing the speed of a treadmill, while Corey ran on it until the child couldn't run any faster. Instead of stopping, Gregor pulled Corey up and forced him onto the treadmill. Failing to keep up, Corey fell several more times as his heartless father watched on. Eventually, Gregor was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and child endangerment. He currently awaits sentencing and faces 10 to 30 years in prison. while Christopher Greger awaits his fate after his son to death. What happens when a convict collapses in the courtroom?